What's up, YouTube? Today's a very special day for this channel. I just recorded my first podcast, something that I've been talking for so long, talking cards. Today's episode number one. My first guest is James, a collector that I respect quite a lot, a very smart collector, a collector that is very engaged in the pre-modern market, and my conversation with him was amazing, and I feel like you guys will enjoy it also quite a lot. If in the end you want to show support to this podcast, to me, to James, feel free to leave a like. Means a lot. I'm starting something new. Of course, is even more important to see the community reacting well to this new series, to this new podcast. So don't forget the like. And another thing that I want to correct and will be very, very easy to understand, at the start of the podcast, I will say, welcome to the second episode of Talking Cars. End up doing that mistake, is actually the first episode. I had a couple of guesses and I thought this eventually will be the second episode. I was wrong on that. Is actually the first and is an amazing one to start. So don't forget the like and see you guys very soon. Enjoy the episode. What's up, YouTube? This is the second time I'm recording the Talking Cards podcast. Today I have an amazing guest, James, a guy that I like quite a lot. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to pre-modern, vintage, etc. And I thought this was a great guest to have for the second time I'm recording this. So I will pass the word to James. James, say something to the audience that don't know you.
Yeah, hi everybody. If you don't know me, James Cards FC. I've been on Sunday League Investors channel a few times recently, so that's probably why anybody would know me from before. But try to be pretty active in the community in terms of talking about vintage, modern, and ultra modern. Got back in the hobby in 2019, and then really heavily in 2020 and 2021, and so picked up a lot of knowledge along the way. Always looking to learn more, but yeah, looking forward to having a good conversation.
Okay, I talk a lot with James via Instagram, so he's not like a person that I don't know, to be transparent with all the viewers. But I thought there was a couple of topics that right now are relevant to have a conversation that I think James could actually provide good value, basically. And the way this will go is I will start with 10 quick questions, and then I will go back to all of those questions, and James will be able to explain a little bit better his thoughts. So James, the way this will work is quite simple. I will ask you 10 questions. A couple of them is basically a word or something. It's super easy to answer. Don't feel pressure. Say the first thing that comes to your mind, because even if you want to change your answer, you'll be able to do it later on this video. So can I start with this?
Let's go.
Okay, first question. Most iconic soccer card for you?
Most iconic card. It's either Pele Leafable again or it's Messi 71 disc.
You have to pick one now.
I have to pick one.
Yeah.
71 disc.
All right. Best set ever made in soccer. Could be vintage, could be pre-modern, could be ultra-modern, is up to you. The best set that you think is...
Yeah. I think the best set's probably 2004 Mega Cards, if I had to pick one.
Okay. Question number 3. Best player ever.
Best player ever? In terms of just best player, I think it's Messi.
Favorite player?
Favorite player?
Is the question number 4.
Ronaldinho for an older player, and then when I started watching soccer again in 2014, Douglas Costa.
All right. Question number 5. Most underrated player in the hobby?
Most underrated in the hobby. That's a good question. I want to say that it's still Messi, just because I think his price is still a long way to go. But if I was going to pick somebody that's underrated below him, somebody like Griezmann probably makes a lot of sense.
All right. Question number 6. Biggest problem that you see in the hobby, in the soccer card market?
Biggest problem, probably over investing in prospects, like anybody between 17 and 21 years old.
All right. Question number 7. Biggest quality or potentially that the soccer card market have for you?
Biggest quality
What's the biggest quality?
Yeah, it's global reach and the fact that the population reports, at least going back before 2014-ish, are so low.
All right. Question number 8. We are almost done. What's your most unpopular opinion about the soccer card market, about the hobby? Most unpopular opinion that you think most people basically don't agree with you.
I think I've shared this one before in Instagram DMs, but and I just said that 71 Biz is the most iconic card in the hobby. I think that's probably one of the worst Lionel Messi investments right now.
All right. Question that's unpopular. Question number 9. In 5 years, what market you see doing well or having the biggest growth in 5 years? F1 or Marvel? In a macro perspective.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm gonna say Marvel because I think F1 might get in trouble when pop reports go out.
All right. Last question number 10. BGS or SGC? In 5 years, what's the company doing better, right? That you think?
In 5 years, I don't think either of them exist, but SGC.
Okay. All right. So it's done basically. Now I will go back to the first question to talk a little bit about those topics. I think I want to put this way. I'll again put you against again pressure on you, because now you can explain your thoughts a little bit better. So going back to the first question, the most iconic soccer cards in the market. You said 7 1Bs, but it should be for you at least between Alifa Bologet or 7 1Bs. Alifa Bologet, I'm talking about Pelé. Can you explain why you end up choosing Messi 7 1Bs?
Yeah, I think it's more iconic just in a general sense that more people are able to obtain it, and a lot of people see that as the grail card for at least them in pre-modern collecting and even in ultra modern. Obviously, Messi's still top of mind, and so when you think of his best card, we usually think of 71 Biz, and it just has this iconic look to it, as well as it comes from Spain, it comes from a premium set. All these different factors add up for that. And the reason I would pick that over the Pele Alifa is the fact that you can't really get the Pele Alifa, even if you want a lower grade. You got to shell out 20-30K for it. So a lot of people can't realistically obtain that. So it's probably the 71 Biz just for that fact.
So I would assume for you the most iconic card in vintage is Alifa Bologet in this case.
Yeah, and I mean, you can make the argument that it should be a 57 Pele or something like that, but it just doesn't have the ability for enough people to have it. And
my answer
ladder of sales.
Yeah, I think Alifa Bologet is the most iconic card in probably in the entire market, but I agree with you. It's between 7 1Bs and Pelé Alifa Bologet. I think on vintage Pelé Alifa Bologet or Bologet, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is the card to go. I think in pre-modern, it's probably between Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks and Messi Mega Cracks, but I think Messi, the market is a little bit bigger for him. I could be wrong, but at least is the idea that I have. And what about ultra modern? I will share mine first, since you end up sharing the other two. I think the most iconic card in ultra modern, even if I'm not a crazy big fan of that card, I think is Prism 2018 Mbappe. Could be a numbered card, could be some type of parallel, but even the base, I think that card is quite iconic in ultra modern. And I think that's one of the cards that end up growing with the explosion of the hobby.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think the fact that it transcended just the soccer hobby, because at a point when base stuff was going crazy, people that weren't into soccer at all were aware of and had Mbappe PSA 10 base or Mbappe PSA 10 silvers, but not in the way that they had 2017 chromes for Mbappe and things like that. And so for more of the general mainstream hobby that's not necessarily in the soccer niche, they still know that card.
I agree. So yeah, I guess we are almost in line on this question. Pelé, Messi 7 1Bs, Mbappe, it was in different eras, but those cards are quite iconic, even if Mbappe is still such a young card in the hobby, but still super iconic. So on the question number 2, you said the best set, the question was, what's the best set ever made? You said the Mega Cracks 2004. Let me say one thing. I agree with you. I mean, I've been saying that for at this point almost years, and I think that set is super iconic. The reason I say it, and I will give you the word in a moment, is I think it's important for a set to have a Holy Grail card, because automatic there is a lot of attention to that set. And even then, if you think there is another great rookie, Sergio Ramos is one of the best defenders ever, also being having a rookie there. And if you think about that set, I mean, so many people that end up winning Ballon d'Or, Zidane, Ronaldo, Michael Owen, Messi. It was just an insane, Ronaldinho, of course, was just an insane moment in time in Spain. Spain have been quite strong, to be fair, because after that they end up having the Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi era. So I agree with you. I think Mega Cracks is, at least for a league set, I don't think there is a lot of competition being real. I think if you want to put national teams, I think there is a couple. 2006 World Cup is actually the Panini cards. That set is actually quite beautiful in my perspective. So it's a strong contender. But I don't know. I think I relate players more with the club than I relate with the national team. So I would love to know your thoughts on that. But
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think what you said earlier is really key for me. It's the fact that the set has to have one of the holy grails in it. And so when we talk about 2006 Panini World Cup, while the Messi and Ronaldo cards are valuable in that set and sought after, they're not holy grail cards in any sense because there's too many of them. It's not a rookie season, and there's a bunch of different reasons why they're not as good as 2004. But
exactly.
So that said, that's why I wouldn't put it up there. And so the only other one I would consider would be the Alifa set. But the problem with that set is the fact that outside of the Pele and the Garincha, I might get hate from vintage collectors here, but there's no other relevant cards in that set. Like, I'm sorry.
It's different, right? It's different.
Yeah, it's a different sort of relevance.
And so, even the product for Mega Cracks is just a better product. I mean, we can see there is some, I will not say technology, but things are a little bit more ahead on 2004. And actually, I like the design of those cards quite a lot. I actually think it's one of the best Mega Crack sets ever made. Even if I take the Messi out of the set, I really like the design. Actually, not related with this question, but not part of the total question that I end up asking you, in this case, 10. What do you think about the sale of Ronaldinho Mega Cracks 2004, a PSA 9, I believe, sold for $800? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I remember that when it got listed on eBay for $1,800, and I thought to myself, that's the highest graded Ronaldinho Mega Cracks that I'd seen in a couple years, I think, listed on eBay, whether it be for auction or buy it now. So when it was listed for 1,800, I thought, it's high, but it might actually get there just because you never see these come up. And so when it sold for 800, I thought, yeah, I mean, it makes some sense to me. In terms of the set, that's easily one of the top 3-5 cards in the set. And if the set is going to be the most iconic set in the hobby and the Messi is the grail, that Ronaldinho in high grade should be a grail as well, just considering we talked about this before, but Ronaldinho only has one rookie, and then outside of that, his other releases are either really, really low in pop or just not the best sort of cards or stickers. So for example, like the 2002 horizontal one he has with PSG, there's tons of those, and it doesn't really feel like a special sticker really. But when you look at the Mega Cracks card, that looks and feels like it should be something iconic and valuable. So I'm not surprised that it performs that well.
And I think that actually opens a window in the pre-modern market for one reason. Mm-hmm. If you think about because Ronaldinho have 2003 cards, that's actually the rookie season at Barcelona. But I don't think any cards on 2003 sold for this amount of money. So makes me believe, and could be me being too optimistic, but set collecting can actually be a thing, especially for Mega Cracks 2004, because think about this. Do you think at 2003 PSA 9, and I don't know the pop report from the top of my head, but you think a PSA 9, a 2003 PSA 9 Ronaldinho sells for that? I'm not sure, honestly. I think that was because people recognize that set, the 2004 set, as a super iconic set.
Yeah, I agree. They're putting a premium on the set value. If a 2003 came up in a high grade like a PSA 9, I don't think it would cross even 500.
And this, again, like I was saying, this opens a new window in the pre-modern market, because it makes me believe that players like Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo, the Brazilian one, on that set, David Beckham, Michael Owen, Luis Figo, all of those players can potentially be, again, no financial advice, as you guys know, but can potentially be a good buy right now if you can still find those in good condition that can potentially grade 8, 9s, and maybe even 10s.
Yeah, the thing on those is the fact that so few are either graded or are going to be in high grades, because at least with the Messi, there's, at least in my opinion, there'd be a high likelihood that even if people weren't into cards or card grading at the time, they would have kept it, and they would have kept it in a nice condition, just because it still would have been known as a Messi rookie in 2004. And so the likelihood of those cards surviving is a lot higher than, say, one of the Beckham cards surviving in a high grade, or Zidane surviving in a high grade. And so I think those could be extremely low pop, and whenever you have that sort of supply shock on the market, things get really interesting.
The thing that can be a little bit tricky is I believe the Messi was an update. So there is a likely scenario there is more Ronaldinho, David Beckham than there is actually Lionel Messi. Of course, this is super relative. We don't know for sure. For example, if when they introduced the seven, in this case, the Bs, which means at the time in Spain was players that end up joining the team in January or around that, I'm not sure if that means that the other players end up appearing a little bit less, and for example, Ramos and Messi appearing a little bit more. So it's so difficult to say if Messi is more rare than David Beckham, or David Beckham could even be more rare, which I don't believe, by the way. But it's difficult to say what card can actually have more some type of true rarity, knowing that pops will be huge for those like Messi. I mean, Messi, if you count all the grading companies, is above 1K pop report, 1K pop total. I'm sorry. But we know that getting a PSA 9, a PSA 10, there is only 20. There is a little bit more BGS 9.95s, but still quite difficult to find. And I would expect the same for Ronaldinho, David Beckham, etc. on that set. But yeah, I think that, like I was saying, opens a very interesting window on the pre-modern market, because, and by the way, one of my first videos, and you guys can check that on YouTube, was, I believe, the one of the biggest plays right now in the market is collecting sets. Again, is a very long run type of play without any type of doubt. But that sale for Ronaldinho, and I know Ronaldinho is a very special player, makes me believe that I was right 1 year ago, more or less. So I hope it's the case. But let's move on. Great answer. Question number 3. Best player ever for you? You said Lionel Messi. Can you explain a little bit more? And my answer, by the way, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get into this interesting argument about best player when it comes to, are you talking about their legacy, the trophies they've won, the awards they've won, or is it the best player in terms of skill, technical ability, and all that? And so you can't really compare somebody like Pele to Messi, because if you talk about them technically, it's not even close. I mean, Messi's miles ahead of maybe any player that's ever played the game in terms of his technical ability. But Pele,
different times, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's different. It's completely different times. So comparing them that way is really tough. But if I think about who the best player ever is, it's Messi, just because of that technical ability and the fact that he does things that we've never seen before on the pitch, and 91 goals in a season and all that stuff. I mean, there's a very likely scenario that we never see anybody reach those peaks again. And so just from that sense, and the longevity of it, I know he's had a really bad season this season, and even the season prior wasn't up to his standards, but the record list is so long for him of records that we'll probably never see broken again, that I think it's hard to argue at this point.
No, I agree with you, but I will open this question a little bit more. So let's say the best player by era. What player do you think is the best in the vintage era? And I know some people in vintage that they like to separate vintage between pre-war. Again, let's go just vintage, and vintage goes until the 80s, until the 90s. It's up to you in the end. What do you think is the best vintage player? I'm not saying the best investment on the market. This is just as a fan of the sport. What is the player that even I know, because you are super young, you did not saw those great players, me neither, of course, but we tend to watch highlights on YouTube and read stories. What player do you think was actually the best player in that era, in the vintage era?
Yeah, I mean, it's either Pele or it's Maradona, just depending on what you value more. Do you value the fact that Maradona was single-handedly carrying teams, or do you value the fact that Pele just kept winning even though his team was really, really strong besides him? And so, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with either. I probably personally think it's more impressive if you're able to drag a team that's decent or not so decent into being top class world champion level than it is to be the best player on the best team. And so I'd probably say Maradona for that reason, but you really can't go wrong with either.
I totally agree. For me, it's also between Maradona and Pele. I think Cruyff also should be in the conversation. Di Stefano should be in the conversation. But I think it's about preference, right? I think Maradona was a little bit more magic, was more something unique. Pelé, if I had to compare, Pelé remembers more, at least from what I've been seeing, more Cristiano Ronaldo and Maradona, not because of being Argentine, but is more like Messi.
Yeah.
Seems a little bit more magic. And again, what you said is actually correct. On 58, Maradona was not Maradona. I'm sorry, Pelé was very important, but was not even the best player on the tournament. And on the next World Cup, he ended up getting injured. So again, of course, Pelé have 3 World Cups, but let's be real, he ended up only playing on 2 or being important on 2. And players like Garrincha, Didi, he had such an amazing, always an amazing team with him. And not saying Maradona played with farmers, of course, but Maradona alone almost ended up winning the, I believe, 86, right, World Cup. So impressive stuff. I'm a fan of both. Now talking a little bit about the market, I don't play on the Pelé market because it's too expensive being real, and I feel I have more opportunities on other markets right now. I could eventually move something to get into the Pelé market, but I would need to put a lot of stuff to even acquire one important card for Pelé at this moment. Not saying it's a bad market because I know I have a lot of viewers that are in the Pelé market. But this will be related with another question. I think Maradona, for example, is still affordable if you compare with Pelé, and there is this disconnection almost that people put Pelé at the top of the top, and there is reasons for that, of course. But I think the soccer world, I'm not talking about the soccer card world, but the soccer world, they have this competition is Pelé or Maradona. I don't think it's that clear as the soccer card market tends to make it right now.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And it's more of a fact that the Pele's come up in high. I think a lot of it is the Pele's come up in high grades more often. They get sent to golden more often, and so we see them more often. If we were seeing the 79 Maradona Panini specifically, we were seeing that in high grades. For example, if a 9 went to golden, or an 8.5 or an 8 went to golden, and you saw those sales keep going higher and higher, I think you would see that sort of progression similar to what we see with Pele. But that just doesn't happen. I mean, we almost never see a Maradona 8 or higher either hit PWCC or golden, and so we don't see that latter effect. But with Pele, we do, and so his prices will just keep increasing with time. I also think there's a disconnect on the American side of the market in terms of Pele versus Maradona. And so when I look at those golden sales and the PWCC sales, I think to myself, it's probably either a fractional fund doing it that is based in America, or an investment fund doing that's based in America, or some sort of big investor that lives in America that's buying these things. And they know Pele more than they know Maradona, at least from my perspective and what I see in America. You know who Pele is, and you know he's the best player of all time. You know that. Maradona, you maybe know, but you definitely know Pele.
I agree. I think it's almost easier to the marketing is easier for Pele on the card market. You know what I'm trying to say, even for auction houses, stuff like that. So yeah, very, very interesting question. And again, let's make this a little bit even more fun. So you said Pele or Maradona. I guess you prefer Maradona, if I'm correct. I probably also would go with Maradona, but I think both are great. On pre-modern, we both agree, Messi, but Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, deserves a mention. And I love Cristiano Ronaldo. I think Cristiano Ronaldo, again, is another player that for me is top 3. So I have I consideration for Cristiano Ronaldo. What about ultra modern? I know there is no goats. People tend to say the baby goats. But what is the
Mhm.
player that you truly believe could be the next Ballon d'Or, could be the player that's running this new generation, basically?
It'd be really hard to say anybody but Mbappe at this point, just from the perspective of he's going to play for the French national team. He's going to play for
Yeah,
PSG.
that's a great point. Yeah.
And that stuff really matters, right? And he has this whole marketing thing behind him. Everybody knows who Mbappe is. He already has a lot of hype and juice in the hobby. And even when we talk about winning Ballon d'Or and all that stuff, in the past, and maybe this changes as the rule changes. It's a popularity contest more than anything, and Mbappe will have a lot of hype and a lot of popularity, so that will matter. And yeah, I mean, I could go through a list of guys that are 17 and 19 years old that I think are really good, but we really have no idea with any of those kids.
No,
So,
it's just for fun. I think, again, my answer is very generic also. I think it's between Haaland and Mbappe. But what you said makes a lot of sense. Haaland playing for Norway, not ideal. Let's be real. And Mbappe, France historical tends to be a super strong team. So Mbappe will always be a little bit closer to win the biggest trophy. Though he already won, of course, but even another one. So, and even right now, probably the favorite team or the second favorite team for the next World Cup. So yeah, great question. Let's move on. And let's go to the number 4. And this, again, is the fun one, favorite player ever, which is funny because your answer is also mine. Ronaldinho is also my favorite player ever. And before you go a little bit more in depth about this, I see some people on the hobby not understanding the hype about Ronaldinho. Actually, I was talking with a member on Discord that Ronaldinho does not have the trophies to compete even with Ronaldo, Zidane, etc. Why people put Ronaldinho so up there? I think it's the type of thing that if you saw, you know, because Ronaldinho was special, basically, was a player that, look, if Ronaldinho does not exist, good chance I'm not recording this podcast, because at the time I ended up liking football, but it was more like casual. But when Ronaldinho ended up appearing at Barcelona, that was completely that ended up changing the soccer. And actually, the first videos I started searching on YouTube, when YouTube ended up appearing, was Ronaldinho tricks with the ball, stuff like that. So Ronaldinho is, if and again, this is no critique, but is a reality. A lot of Americans started collecting very recently, and they don't know this history. But people that saw Ronaldinho play, they understand how special that guy was. That's because, again, his stats maybe not the best. His number of goals, very normal for even a mid-tier player nowadays. That's the reality. But was about what Ronaldinho ended up representing for soccer. To certain point, I believe there is a comparison between Ronaldinho and Michael Jordan. People say Michael Jordan ended up making people feel in love with soccer again, and I believe Ronaldinho also was that, in this case, on the pre-modern era, because again, soccer was an amazing sport already, but Ronaldinho ended up bringing that almost spicy, that magic that was so fascinating to watch. I have a story that I remember Benfica, which is my team, playing against Barcelona, and I was not sure about what team I should support because I was such a big fan of Ronaldinho that I really was not sure. So completely agree with you. Ronaldinho, by a large margin, my favorite player. I don't think he was the best player because, again, in that case, I think stats make some sense, but I think he's a key player in pre-modern without any type of doubt.
Yeah, and I think what you said there is really important. It's the fact that when you talk about Ronaldinho, it's not about trophies or Ballon d'Ors or really anything other than who he was to a lot of people. And then, I mean, we just don't have people that play like Ronaldinho. We didn't have people before Ronaldinho that really played like Ronaldinho. So it was this really interesting thing where you were watching a completely different way of playing the game. And so when you go back and you look at the highlights, and those highlights have a crazy number of views, which just shows how many people were taken to that story and that narrative. And so
I could be wrong, but I actually believe Ronaldinho was some of the first viral videos on YouTube. Ronaldinho and even Cristiano Ronaldo at United Because at the time, I remember looking at those videos having 5 million views, which today is nothing, well, let's be real. But at the time was completely insane, a video. And I could be wrong, but I actually believe a Ronaldinho video was, for a long time, was top 2 or top 3 on YouTube. I remember looking something around that time that I was, whoa, it's just insane how popular Ronaldinho is. But yeah, I agree with you completely. So moving on, and there is not a lot to say about this in the end, it's about preference. For sure, a lot of people in the future will say Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, a kid nowadays probably in the future will say Mbappe. So it's about generation, right? Question number 5. Most underrated player in the hobby, you said Lionel Messi, right? No, you said Lionel Messi or could be Griezmann.
Yeah, it depends on how you interpret the question, right? In terms of undervalued and where I think their future prices could be, like in long-term thinking, I think it's still Messi. But in terms of right now in this moment, it's a guy like Griezmann probably makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Look, about Messi, I have insane amount of confirmation bias on this topic. I'm going to be real, is the player that I invest the most, so makes almost no sense for me to agree with you on that. On Griezmann, I guess it depends if France ends up, because again, if France ends up winning another World Cup, the narrative on Griezmann can change quite drastically, because Griezmann have been the man for France. People think he's Mbappe, but that's not the reality. Actually, Griezmann have been the best man for France. I think right now, I actually believe Lewandowski could be the most underrated player in the pre-modern era, at least, because
yeah, I think
the
that's
man
a
is
good
insane.
Yeah, I think that's a good one as well in terms of where his price is at and where it should be. For me, I would say Griezmann just because of the fact that he doesn't even have a market at all. If you really look at it, like I was saying, the gold select Messi from 2017 that ended up selling for 70 grand. You can get, at least until yesterday, I think it sold. You could have got the Griezmann version of that exact same card for $200 on eBay. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, he has no market, and he's probably going to end up being the highest goal scorer for France. If they win another World Cup, he'll be the highest goal scorer and 2 World Cups. That's speculative, but
I'm sorry. Let me just put another thing out there. What about almost every key player, legendary player from pre-modern being undervalued? Because one thing that I feel is, you look at Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo prices, they are insane, especially for those numbered cards like Prism 2014, Select, whatever. All of those very popular sets on ultra-modern. You know, as me, that you look at Messi prices and Cristiano Ronaldo, and they are in a different league, with Mbappe and Haaland now being also quite expensive. But don't you think that we can apply that logic that you did for Griezmann, like you said, that gold is what is select field,
yeah,
right?
2017. Yeah.
Okay, it's being so cheap, but what about Iniesta? What about Lewandowski, Modric, all of those players that we know are so important for this era? Don't you think we can almost apply this idea that almost every player that is key, that is a legendary player, and this is a relative thing, of course, can be undervalued right now in the market?
Yeah, I agree with you on that fact. I mean, then you open the door to players like Neymar, for example, is ridiculously underpriced compared to Messi and Ronaldo. But you can't really say underpriced because the market sets the price, but it seems like undervalued in the market just because, I mean, when we're going to talk about this era, we're going to talk about Messi and we're going to talk about Ronaldo. And then after that, you probably talk about Neymar.
The reason I'm asking this, and I know you have experience on this market, is I was really thinking about this the other day. Look, if you look at Mega Cracks 2009 and right now the Cristiano Ronaldo card and even the Messi are getting very, very good price, especially the Cristiano Ronaldo card. But for example, right now Benzema is playing out of his mind. He's playing at a level that could potentially even be exactly that card is beautiful. That Benzema could be the next Ballon d'Or. I mean, it's totally possible if Real Madrid wins. If again, there is a scenario on that at least. And I'm seeing his cards on that set in particular moving quite a lot. And I was thinking about this. Look, I remember buying Cristiano Ronaldo for in good condition, let's say $40, $50. And if I grade those, and I actually sold a couple of those in the past, if they grade, I'm sorry, 8s, 9s, I can sell it for $500. Again, a good amount of money. But maybe people that was investing in Benzema, in players like Modric, etc. Modric is not on that set, but in this general idea, look, Benzema was probably $1 or $2 in Spain, that card. You know what I'm saying? And right now you can sell it for $50 in good condition. So the increment was way stronger on those legendary players. But again, this is a complex topic because you can tell me, yeah, but you need to grind a lot on that front, and it's a little bit easier to buy just 2-3 cards and make your money and move on. So it's a complex topic, but I think there is some merit into looking at least, again, no financial advice, guys, but looking at in a macro perspective at other players right now, like you said, like you said, with the Griezmann example, but I'm saying now that I guess we can apply almost this to the entire market on specific on pre-modern, but maybe even in vintage.
Yeah, I think in pre-modern specifically, if you're targeting players like Benzema, like Griezmann, like any of those kinds of players that are the tier below Messi and Ronaldo, and you're buying things like early Mega Cracks cards, early Mundi Chrome or Mega Cracks inserts, and you're grinding out, buying them raw, finding them in good condition, grading them, you're going to do extremely well. No financial advice. Yeah. You're going to do extremely well on that because there's just not enough out there to supply the demand for those cards in good condition. And so, and you take out all the risks. So, for example, you could buy an Adeyemi for $500, a sapphire color or something like that, and grade it. And by the time it comes back from grading, Adeyemi might not be in the starting 11 anymore for Salzburg. He might get a move to a club that's not a top club. He could go to I don't know, some Serie A team or something like that nobody cares about. And you're done. You're out of that money, or you're holding it for a long time. Whereas if you took that $500 and you spent it on Messi, Iniesta, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho inserts or Mega Cracks cards, you're probably going to come out way ahead over the next few weeks.
You know what I feel about that is sometimes it's difficult to imagine that scenario. Let me explain why. I remember buying Messi rookies on eBay, Spain eBay, basically. I remember on Todo Coleção, all those sites that people are aware nowadays. And I remember when I bought cards from Spain, from eBay, that I tend to always look at the profile of the person to see what they have. And I remember seeing Ronaldinho's at $2, seeing Zidane's at $5. But for me, I always thought, I have time, basically. And I was wrong, honestly. Again, I ended up buying some stuff, of course, but I could have way stronger positions on the pre-modern market, especially for those iconic players in multiple Mega Crack sets, or even sets from Italy that I also ended up buying quite a lot. But at that time, I don't know how to explain this very well with my English, but I think we tend to assume that we have time, and it's difficult to imagine the market getting to that point so fast. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself well on that.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the fact that, and I think a lot of people think this, it's the shiny new object sort of thing, right? Where you have all these cards that you know are going to be good investments. So like we talk about Mega Cracks inserts for Messi and Ronaldo, for example. It's a great example, actually.
Yeah.
You see those and you think to yourself, it's a long-term investment. I can buy these, I can grade them out, I can hold them, or I can sell off the ones that don't grade as well as I think, and that's going to be a sound strategy. But at the same time, you look at the ultra-modern end of the market and you see Dusan Vlahovic, for example, scoring a bunch of goals for the club he was with before Juventus, and you think to yourself, wow, I don't want to miss the boat on this. And
you buy a dream in the end, right?
You tend to buy you're buying a dream.
Could be the next talent, could be the next Mbappe on the Ovi.
And so then before you know it, you spent $500 on Dusan. 2 weeks later, he's out of the Champions League, and that $500 that you could have spent on those Messi Ronaldo inserts, maybe they're gone because there's not that many of them lying around in good condition. And so it's tough to sort of see in the moment that what the obvious plays are when you get caught up looking at the things that are going up crazy in value, as opposed to things that you know are going to go in value a little bit.
No, I mean, you can apply this to other markets. I mean, this new generation, and there is studies on this, that they tend to like crypto more than they like stocks. The reason is stocks, if you go to blue chip stocks, they move, but they move slow. But again, if you lose, normally, again, we are living in crazy times, so everything is out of the window right now. But normally, they tend to lose also slow. But in general, there is studies that show that blue chip stocks, they will give you a decent return. But the reality is, if you put, let's say, 1K, you should not expect to have 10K at the end of the year. Probably maybe 1.2K, and that will already be very good. But why people go to markets, to super speculative assets, and by the way, cards are that. So I'm talking against our market, because they see banana stuff, basically things going up 10x sometimes in a week. I mean, maybe not Bitcoin right now, because Bitcoin is a little bit more stable, even though very far from being a stable market in my perspective. But when you look at what people call those altcoins that again, we know basically are pump and dumpers type of coins, but there is a lot of people putting money into those because they chase the dream. It's similar to gambling, right? I mean, I risk, I reward, of course, but you can also lose quite big. I think, again, and I know you follow my channel, and most of the people watching, I believe, follow my channel. I don't believe on that type of investing way. I mean, you can say it's gambling, you can say it's momentum investment, which is a different thing, but relates a lot with this idea that I will ride this wave and I will have a good exit point. A lot of times will fail, and especially on the markets right now, on the soccer card market, a lot of people end up seeing a wave. A trend that I don't think was normal. So look, again, I always put this example because it's a very easy example to understand. I remember buying Messi for super cheap, and I'm still up quite a lot, even though they are facing a huge correction. I'm sorry, not touching the mic, but I don't feel that will be the reality going forward. Of course, we can face another boom, but I think what we end up seeing 1 year ago, 2 years ago, was just the perfect storm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that gives people, or has given people, a warped perception of what kind of an investment class this actually is. So prior to the past 2 or 3 years where things went really crazy, even the Jordan 86 Fleer and PSA 10 was only increasing like at an S&P 500 rate, 15% every year. And then we reach 2020 and it goes pooh, way up, like 700% or whatever it is. That's not the kind of asset class we're really playing in here. We're playing more in a slow 15 to 25% year over year returns sort of asset class, where now that explosive growth isn't coming from the blue chips and the obvious things, people are looking for the more speculative plays to try and capture again that massive return. And it really isn't there in a lot of these cases. We're going to look back on things like Mbappe-based prisms going crazy and Holland stickers going crazy, but a lot of those were perfect storm scenarios in terms of people in the market, low population reports, and we might not see returns like that again for either a very long time or ever, just because it was such a unicorn type moment.
No, what you said is actually quite interesting, and I never thought that way. Because actually people going for ultra modern is trying to leave that spike again, if you think about it. Because look, in the past, even players like Pelé, Messi, Garrincha, they give you crazy returns, and those players should not be doing that. They should have a slow growth. Of course, I'm talking about key cars. That there is amazing Pelé cars, and there is cars that I don't think are that great to buy, because we tend to talk about the Pelé market, the Messi market. You need to do your own research and know what cards you should target. But in the past, almost every card was going up, and I think people, like you said, maybe going for I don't know, Musiala, Bellingham, which I think are great players, but they may try to have that moment again that, look, I put $10, I have 1K, crazy stuff that we actually saw in the past.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I think people just thought they were smarter than everyone else, when the fact was you could have literally bought anything. And so now we all have a warped perception of,
Yeah.
oh, since I was right on Holland or I was right on these other players, I'm going to be right again in the future. And it was me that did it, not necessarily the market. The best example I have for this is in basketball. Marvin Bagley was a player on the Sacramento Kings. His silver prism went up 3x over this time period where the whole market boomed, and he never got off the bench. He was the same player he was at the start, and maybe worse at the finish, and his prism silver had 3x. You could have literally put money in anything at the beginning of 2020, and you would have made 3x at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. I mean, so looking at the market, you have to kind of ignore this last 2-year period and sort of just look back to what it was more like in the years before, I think.
Yeah, no, again, I think the market is stronger than it was a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
And again, there is still a lot of hype. Look, people tend to say, and I'm one of them, that we are facing a downtrend, maybe a bearish market. But there is another argument that we are still facing an uptrend market, because again, there is a correction inside the uptrend, but we are still quite up if you compare with 3-4 years ago. So it's an interesting time. And sometimes one thing that I guess we need to say is, I believe the soccer card market is a special market, because I still believe, and could be my confirmation bias, of course, that we still have a lot of room to grow. Because again, like you said, look at prices for a player like Iniesta, even Griezmann, another nice example. They should be a little bit probable, at least knowing how important end up being for the history of this era, the pre-modern era, of course, and Griezmann is still playing. They should have some type of premium, and we are not seeing that. So again, maybe there is opportunity on that front.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's move on. Again, great topic. Okay, most underrated. The other one is biggest problem in the soccer card market. I think you said people overreacting, over spending. I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem we see right now is just an over-reliance on prospecting so we need to call out some different things here. Prospecting is 100% gambling. If you're looking at 16 to 21-year-old players and thinking that this is an investment, it's not. It's 100% gambling when you're putting $500.
It's speculation, right?
It's speculation. It's speculation.
But James, again, I believe it's fair to say this. If someone says on the comments on YouTube that every card is the card market is a speculation market, is almost gambling, I think there is also a point into that, because that's the reality. You are talking about an asset without any type of intrinsic value. So if you want to have that take, to some extent, I agree with you. But again, I think it's also smart to assess the market in different levels. Look, again, I'm not big into crypto. In the past, I actually invested, but right now I'm not that big into crypto. But let's say if you invest in Bitcoin versus investing in a random coin, even if Bitcoin, and I agree with you, even if you say Bitcoin is still super risky, yeah, but probably a little bit more stable than a random Dogecoin or the new Dogecoin. I don't know the name. So even inside a super speculative market, I think it's fair to say there is different levels. And I think that's what you are trying to say, that, again, maybe cards are very risky. There is no way around that, because basically a card is worth what you say is worth, what I say is worth. That's the reality. But even knowing that, there is some cars that are a little bit more safe. We need to be careful with this. The Pele Alifabolo, for example, again, if that card is not safe, it's difficult to say what card will be at this point. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah, I think a better revised version of my take would be that instead of people investing on a portfolio and having S&P 500 type stocks, what we're seeing is a lot of people are only investing in penny stocks and expecting to have a good return portfolio just on penny stocks, whereas they have no positions on strong S&P 500 type stocks in this market. And I think just as a general investing scenario, you wouldn't go into a market and just invest in penny stocks. And at least from my perspective, I think a lot of people in this market are really focusing on penny stocks and trying to hit it big as opposed to having a more organized, well-rounded portfolio. And I think that's going to serve you best going forward.
I agree. But James, I think it's also this. The more you feel that you are losing on the market, the more you will be open to make them decisions, and the more you will be open to take risk on that, because you think, look, that guy owns all the rookies for Messi, for Pelé, for Maradona. The only way I will get there is gambling right now on this new kid from France. Different. For me, the biggest problem in the soccer card market is actually the amount of fakes that we are, especially stickers. But again, that will be a video alone on that. I think, look, scammers will always be when there is money to be made, right? And I think grading companies, and look, I'm not criticizing PSA, BGS, SGC, I'm criticizing all of them. They need to find a way, and I don't know the way. I have to be honest, because most of those fakes are actually quite good, but they have to find a way to solve this problem, because again, I think that can actually really hurt the market. Short term, long term, that does not matter. I think is awful.
Yeah, we've seen it from the CR7 sticker perspective. Once the market loses confidence in something, it all goes down very fast, and it's really hard to get any sort of confidence back.
No, yeah, I mean, it's like any type of relationship almost. Is very difficult to trust in someone, but it's very easy to lose that trust.
Yeah.
And you can apply this logic to cards, because again, if you don't feel comfortable buying, if you need to see, oh, is this a real one or not? Look, some people will not even go into that logic. No. I stay away from that card forever, basically, or until again, maybe not forever, but for a long time. That's a case that I totally agree. So moving on. Okay, question number 7 is the biggest quality / potentially you see in the soccer card market. I think you said the international reach. Am I correct?
Yeah, international reach, and the fact that the population reports before 2014 are so crazy low in comparison to other sports, that if demand comes, and things are crazy.
Mm-hmm. But again, this is something that I'm sorry, I believe a lot, but I also question myself if I'm being crazy about this one or not. I personally believe Asia and Europe will be big part of the marketing in the long run. I live in Europe, and again, I'm not comparing our market with the American market. It's night and day, of course, but I see way more people talking about this stuff. I see more people, most people are trying to make money with things that they potentially can have. That's the reality. But there will also be some type of conversion on those guys. Some people will get addicted. Okay, I made money with selling a Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks card, but let me see about Eusebio. Let me see about Luis Figo. You know what I'm trying to say? I think there will be a trickle-down effect, even if a lot of people are trying to basically just make money.
Any sort of awareness on the market is always a good thing. And so when you see the articles that get listed in Portugal or in Spain for these cards or stickers that people have had in their collection for 20 years now, selling for 5-6 figures, that generates a lot of awareness on the market. And so even if somebody just goes to their closet to pull one out and sell it, they're probably a lot more interested in the market than they were before.
No, I agree with you. And again, I also believe that that's the biggest potential on the soccer card market is the fact that, again, the American market, I love it. I think they will run the market for a long time. But I can imagine at least a world where the European market will also be crucial for soccer. The Asian market is already important for high-end. That's the reality.
Yeah, I was going to say the Asian market, if you go on any of the Chinese websites, soccer is the second most popular sport in terms of content.
No, yeah. And another thing that a lot of people don't get this is Pokemon is actually quite big in Europe. And I tend to think this because this was my experience, not with Pokemon, but with Magic. I started looking at Magic cards, and was a question of time until I started looking at sports cards, because we see, oh, look, this is a card graded by this BGS company. At the time, what is this? And then I thought, okay, but now this guy also sells Michael Jordan. Let me see if there is some Cristiano Ronaldo. So I also think that, again, this is a super complex topic, but it's a snowball effect. If the Pokemon market does well in Europe, if the Yu-Gi-Oh market does well in Europe, that will convert into some, that will bring more people to the soccer card market. I have no doubt about that. It's, again, very complex topic again, but markets, they work together, even if it's so difficult to understand.
Yeah, I mean, the best example we have for that is Marvel over the past few months. I mean, nobody really talked about them as an investment type of card, but now all the sports people have invaded that hobby and jacked up prices a ton. So it's only natural that we would see crossover from other aspects of the hobby. And in Europe especially, soccer is the #1 sport and it's not even close. And so if people are going to cross over to one of the sports from Pokemon, it's going to be soccer.
I agree. And the other thing that I would actually add to this conversation is, if you think about soccer, the soccer collector is a collector that is very open to other markets. Because look, how much people collect soccer and F1 at this point? I think there is a huge crossover between soccer and F1. At least on my Instagram feed, I see a lot of times people that I follow for soccer posting Ayrton Senna cards, etc. I think that there is actually, I think those new markets, I think KSA calls them emergent markets or something like that. I think they can feed off each other quite a lot, actually. If F1 does well, I actually believe that benefits soccer. And same logic with soccer doing well will benefit another new market.
I think, like you said, the people that are in these markets are more open to other markets doing well in the future because we lived through it, right? You and me were in this market before there was any sort of heat on the soccer market. I mean, I was buying in 2019. The first thing I ever bought was an Mbappe BGS9 sticker, and it was $100 for the 2016 rookie sticker. I was buying Marcus Rashford silver prisms for $1.50 or $2. I mean, there was absolutely no market back then for this sort of thing. And so when we look at other markets like Marvel or Star Wars or anything else we talk about, even though the price isn't there yet, we can see value in it just like we saw before.
I agree. No, yeah, I agree. I think, again, everything is connected. It's a complex topic that, again, I'm just a dumb guy saying this, but the market is connected. There is no way around. Question number 8, I'm sorry. What's your most unpopular opinion in the hobby? And I believe you said that is also Messi being too expensive, the 7-on Bs.
Yes.
So explain that, because that's a little bit controversial, actually.
Yeah, so my take on 71 Biz is that unless you're buying, it's a complicated part, right? So unless you're buying a PSA 10 71 Biz, I think that your money in the Messi market is better spent elsewhere. So for example, if you have the $5,000 to buy a mid or low grade 71 Biz, I think you're much better off buying an on-card auto or something from one of the higher end sets with that money, because I think your multiplication on that will be way higher just from a supply and demand population perspective. So for example, like we see with Jordan, his most expensive cards are not the Fleer 86 PSA 10. It's things like PMGs, super rare inserts, on-card patch autos, and stuff like that. So at least with Messi, his most expensive card until this golden sale goes official is 71 Biz. And I know it's pop 20, but there's other cards that are lower in pop that I think will be more expensive than that in the future, like we see with the Jordan market. And so I just think that if you have that money and you don't have enough to buy a PSA 10, but you want to have a Messi investment, I think you're better off going for low population, high-end stuff than a lower grade 71 Biz.
No, makes sense. I would say I kind of agree with you, even though I'm very invested in that card in particular. But I would say this. I think, again, rarity is fundamentals is a super relative thing, but I think most people agree that rarity is an important fundamental when it comes to buy any card in this market. But I also think rarity to a certain point is a little bit overrated, because look, there is a lot of rare cards, that's the reality, but iconic cards, that there isn't a lot. think about iconic cards. You probably think about 4 or 5 that you say, no, those cards are really iconic. Pelé, Liverpool Loget, the Messi 7 on B. So understanding demand, or the demand that that card in particular needs to increase in price, is difficult, right? Because that card is not a normal card. That's even if the pop is 10k, which of course I don't think will be the case ever, to be fair. But even if it's 10k, and look, Michael Jordan is more than that. So, but even if the pop is 10, that card will always have a special market, because let's be real. For example, I believe you don't own one, but I will be. This is please be honest. You probably want to own that card one day, right?
Correct. Yes, and that's
you know what I'm trying to say. Is a card that
the point is there's no rush for me to do it right now, because I don't think in the short term you're going to see much velocity on those grades specifically, because I think there's just too many above them that people are wanting to buy now.
And the thing is, I don't even think this is a similar example. But for example, I believe you own a Ronaldinho card, the 99 sticker, right? I don't own that sticker. Is one of the big cards I'm missing right now. Right now, I'm not buying that card, probably like you, for the 7 on Bs, because I'm seeing more opportunity on other stuff. And I feel like that I still have time to potentially buy that card one day. But again, does not, in the other end, there is a conflict that I have, because that card is so iconic. I don't care if it's the best buy or not, because look, we are collectors in the end. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? I know I can put my money, my manager, my account manager, every time they make a deposit on my bank account, he calls me, do you want to invest this money? I can put money on other things and potentially have a decent return. Again, it's super difficult to predict, but most likely. But collecting is not only about that. I mean, it's also, again, you can have a Messi out of 10, and you show me that Messi, and there is exceptions. And if you show me a Messi 7 on Bs, I will be more impressed, or at least I would, oh no, okay, that card, I know, you know what I'm trying to say. There is also that, and that is also that I believe is insanely underrated in the hobby. That people, and I understand the logic, people are they focus a lot on rarity right now, because again, we are in a down market, and when we face a down market, I think people tend to go to things that, okay, the pop is very low on this, I'm a little bit safer. But I also think people end up missing opportunities in super iconic cards, even if the rarity is not there like there is in other cards. But rarity is just one thing. There is way more things to look when buying a card.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I think my point here is that it's a very unique opportunity on the Messi market right now. The fact that 71 Biz in PSA 10 is so much more expensive than pretty much all of his rare issues. And when you look at Jordan, there's quite a few that outsell his rookie in PSA 10. I think if you can take a lot of time and a lot of research to try and identify which ones you think are going to be like those Jordan cards, I think those cards are massively undervalued right now.
And by the way, we already talked about this in private, but I feel like the ST sticker was such a great opportunity, man.
Yes.
But right now, see, it's trust. I'm not buying that card, and I own, but it's basically that I'm not I'm not putting more money into the ST sticker until I feel comfortable knowing that there is no more fakes, or at least is under control. So see, that's another example. Great cards, still low pop, but most people are aware of this right now. There is a lot of fakes going around for that card. So
yeah, and I think stickers in general are in a really interesting tipping point in the market. Right?
I agree. Yeah.
If PSA, BGS, SGC, and all these grading companies don't get it under control, stickers are going to be in a lot of trouble.
All right. Question number 9. F1 or Marvel in 5 years? What market you think will have the biggest growth? And I believe you said Marvel. Explain your thoughts on this. And by the way, on Marvel, I own some stuff, but nothing, especially if you guys are not aware of James, he actually ended up selling PMGs. You guys can check that on Sunday League Investors channel. And I believe you have some experience, at least way more than me, on Marvel. On F1, I also have no experience, so I have almost. I'm talking. This is a question just for you because I don't invest in F1 or Marvel. Again, I invest in Marvel, but very little. So I don't think my opinion is super relevant. But I would love to know yours.
Yeah, so disclosure on my holdings here. I am pretty much sold out of everything that I own in Marvel because I was in for absolutely nothing a couple years ago. And from my perspective, I was just buying them because I thought they looked cool and they were fun. And then it got to a point where, well, can't say no to a 30, 40x return or whatever it was at the time when I got the return. So I'm pretty much completely out of that market right now. I have some stuff at PSA I'm going to back, but outside of that, I'm out of the market. My opinion on that market is there's a very large collector base that has been there for those sorts of things. And so over the next 5 years, even if the investors come in and leave, there's still that collector base. For F1, it seemed like at the start, everyone was just in a mad dash to make money off this thing with really low pop. But now it seems like they're starting to get a bit of a collector base. A lot of the hype is driven by the one Netflix show that everybody is watching. And so I don't know how I feel about that long term. Does the show go out of popularity? Does it increase in popularity? Because at least in my opinion, when I look on social media or I listen to things on YouTube, people are one-in-one connecting that market to the show. And that's pretty much how the market has been going. It's either based on performance in the races or it's what happens in the show, and that's what generates the interest for the market. Whereas with Marvel, it's had that collector base. People have been set collecting it, and all those factors I think matter a lot. It's taking a market with no collectors but very high prices against a market that has a ton of collectors, but the prices haven't always been that high. And I think I would almost always go in the case of a market that has a lot of collectors.
No, I understand your point, and again, even if I don't have a lot of experience on that market, I remember PMGs for Marvel quite cheap because I also use CompC quite a lot. And at the time, and I already told you this story, I thought, nah, this is just stupid. Why people will buy cards for Marvel? If they want a collectible for Marvel, they will go for the comic book. And that was my logic. And right now, again, knowing that what you know, of course, was quite wrong. But I feel like more people end up feeling what I felt at the time. You know what I mean? Because cards on Marvel was not really a market. It was okay, they love comics, but that's their collectible space. But again, now I regret quite a lot. So yeah, but yeah, interesting. Again, about F1, I don't know basically anything. So I think it's a market like soccer that is still new. I think soccer have a little bit more history, but the modern product probably a little bit riskier, but I think that for almost every market, you know what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I have zero skin in the game in F1 at all, and I've never watched a race and I've never watched the Netflix show. I'm just going off of what I've seen and heard on social media, and so that's very little. I do know that there's not a lot of sets, so the populations are really low right now, and that could be a big reason why everything's so expensive. But going forward, I don't know how that shakes out when they start pumping out 30 sets a year like they do with soccer.
All right. No, I agree again. I think you are on point on that. Question number 10, and this is the last one. BGS or SGC in 5 years, similar to F1 Marvel, what company do you believe will be doing the best? In this case, you don't think either one will be doing that great. So that could be an unpopular opinion in the hobby. Because for example, I believe SCC is doing a great job, but I would love to know your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think SGC is doing a great job as well. I just think that over the next 5 years, it's not possible for them to stay in competition as much as it is likely that they get swallowed up by a bigger company that is doing the same exact thing. So, I mean, we've talked about this before, but it's my theory that in the next 5 to 10 years, there's an arms race between eBay and their wing against Collectors Universe, which is PSA, and their wing. So these two massive corporations with massive money trying to run the entire hobby from card opening to grading to selling, these two companies are going to go at it on every single front. And so when that happens and there's that much money involved, I don't think that BGS or SGC at the scale that they're at can survive it and not get swallowed up by one of these other companies that looks to buy everything. So, I mean, we look at the report that comes out from, what's the website called? GemRate. They produce the report every week that shows how many cars have been graded. And PSA is what, 10, 20x the output of these other companies? That's just an insane amount
Yeah,
of demand.
is in a different level on that.
Yeah,
There is no
and
argument.
if PSA brings back bulk, why would you ever send to these other companies? If PSA brings back bulk at $10 to $15 a card, it's pretty much over.
But I think one thing that I think one thing that is, I also believe there is a segment of people that they hate PSA. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that there will always be a market for one of those grading companies. That there will always people that will be a contrarian. You know what I'm trying to say? That will say those guys are cheap. They will go for PSA. I'm staying with BGS or CSG, whatever the company.
My PC is mostly all in. It's all in SGC slabs, right? I mean,
that Mbappe is a beautiful card.
Yeah, no, I love the slab, and it's cheaper than PSA right now. And so for PC stuff, I have no problem throwing it in a bunch of SGC slabs because I'm not looking to move it. But at the same time, I understand that the people that are raw to grade flipping, there's almost no reason for them to send to SGC if PSA is going to be cheaper with similar turnaround times once they're fully operational. And so from that perspective, I think SGC and BGS will get to a point where they won't have the demand that they're used to having when PSA becomes fully operational. And at that point, yeah, they can still survive as companies, and if they want to do it at a lower profit margin than probably what they're used to. But I think it's more likely that they get swallowed up by one of the bigger players.
No, I think your point is valid. I've been grading a lot with SGC. Basically, I like them. I mean, what can I say is, I hate upcharges from PSA. It's something that I don't think upcharges even thinks about you if you are a collector. Let's be real, because I mean, if you are just putting that card in your purse, why you need to pay? You know, it's a weird dynamic, at least for me.
No, I mean, my Marvel PMGs that I sent for $9 to grade, that they were there for over a year, I got upcharged to $250 per card.
So, but in that case, you at least end up selling those. So, you know, but imagine if you are just a Marvel collector, that you are not even trying to sell those. You know what I'm trying to say? Paying that amount of money that, again, I think there is a longer conversation to have on this, that is even that, in terms of morals, is that even correct? You know what I'm trying to say? I think that's
because they're doing the exact same job. It's not like it takes longer or a different process. They're doing the same job that would have cost them $9, and they're charging you $200 for it.
Yeah, again, I understand, because they will say that you are almost insurance in your card if there is something wrong in the future. So again, there is good things on that, but I personally don't like it. And what I would say about this is, look, can I see a future where BGS does not exist? Yes. SGC, yes. But I would say this, I even believe PSA. I'm being real. I think it's always very, very difficult to predict the future. Even if you try to think a scenario, you will always go with things that we know right now. So, okay, PSA is the biggest one. PSA will be the biggest one. But there is a scenario that, look, imagine if Google, imagine if Amazon end up entering the grading space with crazy technology. Is that likely? That's a different conversation, but it's a possibility. Who knows? And grading becomes something that is way more automatic, way more, it's not automatic, the word. There is more technology involved that basically, and look, we know there is some PSA 10s that probably right now will be PSA 8s, right? I mean, I guess everyone agrees with that. Same with BGS, same with SGC. So, you know what I'm trying to say? I think right now, and this is the advice I tend to give to my members, is buy the card, buy great cards. You know, I mean, if I have a Messi that I think is a great card on SGC, on a BGS, on a PSA slab, I mean, it's still a great card, of course. If I'm trying to sell, and you have a great point on that, of course I will get more money if he's in a PSA slab. But a lot of my viewers, they are trying to value investing, or at least I hope that's the case. And if that's the case, again, I'm not saying it's irrelevant. And there is another great argument that why not keep cards raw? I mean, that's also fine in my perspective. If you are not trying to sell, just wait. I mean, and another thing that people tend to forget is grading historical is cheap. It's not expensive. we live in a different we are living in crazy time right now, so yeah.
I think that's a great point, that grading was at a certain point supposed to be cheap, right? We weren't supposed to be paying $50 to grade something. It was $8, $9, and it's completely changed. Now it's the fee you're paying so that you can profit off the card, right? It's PSA taking their cut of a percentage of what it's worth in a PSA 10, and so that's one thing. And then your point about PSA 8s being in PSA 10 cases and stuff like that. My approach has now been, if I'm looking to buy something that's already graded and I'm looking at it for a long-term hold, I'm looking at it in terms of, I think that at some point in the next 10 to 20 years, there will be some sort of computer vision grading. And so when that comes, would I feel comfortable having this card? Because
Exactly.
I think we will get to a point where everything is going to be run through a computer. It could be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but 40 years. Hopefully I'm still around in the hobby by then, but it's going to happen. And so at that point, is my Messi 71 bis in a PSA 6 that ends up being a computer 85 out of 100, is that worth more than the Messi that was in a PSA 9 case that's actually a 72?
I agree, and that's why I tend to say buying PSA 10s, honestly, I think is quite dumb, because if you are buying a 10, again, there is two scenarios. If you buy a 10 because you know you'll flip that card in 1 month from now, you are trying to rate some wave, completely different, of course. But if you buy a 10 as a value investor, first of all, probably more 10s will be graded. There is exceptions on cards. And apart from that, is a 10 can only go down in the future. There is no up for a 10, at least that we can imagine right now. And if you buy a 9, look, a 9 can go to an 8. Of course, can go in the future, but can also go to a 10. And guess what? If a 9 goes to an 8, you lose money. But the opportunity going to a 10 is way bigger than the potential money you lose on an 8. This is super relative and super speculative, of course. But I honestly don't think 10s are a great buy. I always tend to believe the BGS 9.5, the SGC 9.5, the SGC 9, the PSA 9, all of those grades. If you look at the card, if you recognize that the card is correctly graded or even undergraded, because sometimes we see cards on 9s or even 8s that they are so clean that there is no reason for that, I think those will be the ones doing the best in the future, basically. So.
And you're talking about there's no opportunity to increase on your investment from a pure grade perspective if you're already buying a 10. And that's something I thought about a lot when I started entering the hobby. And it's why I pretty much exclusively buy raw cards. I mean, 98% of the cards that I buy are raw for that reason.
Same.
Because there's not a lot of ways your 10 can go up unless the particular value of that card goes up. If you buy raw, if you do your research and all that, there's a good chance you can 2x on it or 3x on it, depending on what your grade is going to be. And so if you take the time to do that research on your raw cards, then I just think that's the way to go if you want to really grind.
No, I agree 100% on that. I think that, look, I think buying raw, again, you need to know what you are doing. Some people buy raw cards that they have no idea, that they think they are buying 10s, they are buying first. So there is also that could be dangerous, of course. But if you have some experience on the market, buying raw, grading, again, I don't like the expression free money, but if you know what you are doing, there is a likely chance that you'll be doing very well, basically. You know what I'm trying to say?
Especially on the sets that we talk about, like your Mega Cracks issues, Mega Cracks and Mundi Chroma inserts, things like that don't get graded a lot. There's really big opportunities there if you can find them in good condition.
No, I agree. That's I will not even contest you. I agree totally. I also think that, again, anecdotal data, random example, but like I was saying, actually sold a couple of cars on PWCC and PropSteen recently, and I sold PSA, BGS, and SEC slabs. And again, I know this is anecdotal data, but actually my PSA slabs end up underperforming quite a lot. And my SEC slabs did very well. But what's the key on this? I sold cards that the pop is very low, no matter the grading company. So automatic that, again, it matters being on a BGS slab. Of course it matters. But to certain point, okay, but this card is rare. Even, okay, I buy the BGS Lab, I crack it to PSA, whatever. There is people thinking like this. And the more important thing, and I have no doubt in my mind about this, is buy the card, buy something with great fundamentals. The plastic that you choose, again, not saying is irrelevant, but is a little bit overrated to certain point.
Yeah, no, it's like you say, every card is a card and every case is a case. It really matters what it is. Certain things in SGC cases will do really well just because they don't have PSA counterparts. And I mean, just going through my drawer here, for example, this is it's the highest graded one in SGC or PSA. And so it doesn't matter what case that it's in, it's the highest graded one. And so
again, James, yeah. If you have that card in a PSA 8 or a PSA 8.5, yes, you'll get a little bit more money. There is no doubt. Mm-hmm. But do people really believe the difference is that? Look, sometimes the upcharge you pay on PSA, the percentage you need to pay because PSA is a little bit more expensive. If you make all of that math, sometimes you are like, it's almost the same thing. But people have this idea. And I would say one thing. You, me, we are more into pre-modern, vintage. So I think that's what we are saying makes more sense for those markets. Yes. If you are playing in ultra modern where everything is a 10, that's when things get a little bit tricky because yeah, a PSA 10 sells for way more than a SGC 9.5. It's not even comparable. But guess what? I'm not playing on that market that much. So for me, you know what I'm trying to say is not that relevant, honestly.
Yeah, it's the less population there is, the less the grading company matters.
I agree. Yes, of course, no doubt. Because again, it's a great card. Yes, the plastic is secondary. But the thing that people, I believe this notion of the grading company mattering a lot comes from base stuff, honestly, because people try to basically, and this is something that people need to understand. Grading companies, they try to make things rare that are not rare. So that they try to find some condition rarity. And they fail a lot of time because sometimes even condition rarity is not a thing. I mean, if there is 10K or 20K, I don't even know the number for Luka Doncic, PSA 10, there is no condition rarity. I mean, sometimes I even see people discussing, should I buy the 9 or the 10? I will try to buy the PSA 7. It's irrelevant. I mean, the card is not rare. There is no investment opportunity on a card like that. At least the way I see the market, I hope...
There are more 10s than 9s of that card. And there's 20,000 10s.
The 9 is more rare, so go with the 9. but yeah, but on those specific markets, I think it makes more sense to have this conversation. You know what I'm trying to say? Okay, maybe PSA, give me a premium. But on vintage, on pre-modern, again, PSA sells for more. So if everyone is watching this video, questioning what's the best grading company to make my dollar worth, the more I can go with PSA. I'm not even trying to trick you into that front. But if you are value investing, if you are not selling right now, I think the plastic is secondary, being totally honest. I think is in the future, who knows, honestly. But I agree with you in the end. I also believe that there will be a lot of consolidation in the space. So any final thoughts?
On consolidation, just I think that's where things are going. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it's like we said earlier, whoever comes into the space with the most money is probably going to end up running it. So when we get to that point, we'll know.
No, yeah. Well, again, all the questions are done. I don't even know how long we end up talking. I have no idea. I will see it at the end. I hope I'm recording this, by the way. But I think I am. Thank you so much for participating on this. Again, I call this a podcast, a talk show, whatever. I don't think it's that relevant. And guys, if you end up enjoying this one, leave a like, leave a comment. I will leave links for James' Instagram. If you have any other social media, you can tell me. And yeah, I mean, share some final thoughts that, if you have, of course.
Final thoughts. Yeah, I don't know. I just think spend your time in the hobby well, do a lot of research, and I think we're at a point, an interesting point in the market where I think people have seen the peaks, and now we've been slowly down over the past year or so, and a lot of people have been discouraged by performance of a bunch of different cards and don't necessarily see that there's still a lot of opportunity in this market, but it's just not as easy as it used to be, and you're really going to have to grind for it. But if you do, I still think there's a lot of opportunity in the market, at least from what I can see. It's just not the obvious stuff that we had seen in the past, where you're not going to be able to buy 20 base cards, grade them all with PSA, and 8x your money. It's a lot of research.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think right now, again, I still think that if you are a guy that puts time in the market, I keep saying this is not about timing the market, it's about timing the market. Even if you start in a slow way, because I think that's normal. I think in the long run, you will be doing great. And apart from that, look, again, like I said, I can put my money into a lot of things that will be a little bit easier to potentially have a return. But I love cards, and you know what I mean. I don't care about if Apple is going up or down. For me, it's irrelevant. But talking about Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi cards is way more fun for me, because I have memories with that. Again, it's just there is some nostalgia effect almost into this. So yeah.
And I mean, at the end of the day, we all collect things, whether the market's going up or down. I always think there's opportunities to add to your collection and do things like that. I mean, yeah, as far down as the market is now, as opposed to where it has been, I've been doing more buying in the past few months than I probably ever have, just because I think there's some great opportunities out there.
But James, that's the funny thing. I also have been buying a lot, but I've been selling a good amount, and people say,
"Oh yeah,
you are selling in a down market." Look, if you are selling in a down market, and I keep saying this, you are also buying in a down market. So if you sell at the top of the market, again, if you try to buy, that also will be difficult. So this is always difficult to navigate. I think having some type of cash flow is very healthy for even for your mental state, because if you just put money, if you don't see a return, even if you are doing well, things can get a little bit tricky. I think it's important to sometimes, okay, this card is 2x up, let's move on to another thing. I think that's healthy.
Yeah, exactly, because there's always things that I'm looking at that I want to buy, and in order to do that, you obviously need to sell what you have in order to not over leverage yourself in terms of your other finances. But yeah, no, have to sell in order to buy and keep the cash flow moving.
And look, sometimes there is, and look, if you don't need to sell right now, and if you can put money without selling, maybe that's smart, to be fair, because we are actually facing, I'm sorry, a strong downtrend in my perspective. But there is nothing wrong if you need to sell to buy and other things. I think that's also quite healthy. So yeah. Thank you so much.
You can always buy things back. I think that's a lot of people.
Yeah. Now people think. I mean,
unless it's something super rare or pop wonder specific, you can always buy it. There's no rule that says you can't.
And look, I talked this on my Patreon. I said one thing that, look, let's say you want to target a card for 10K, and you are like, you know what, now is not a good time, and maybe I will buy it in the future. Sometimes you buy that card in the future for 20K, but guess what? 20K for you at that time could be a little bit easier than 10K is right now. You know what I'm trying to say? Sometimes you tend to think, no, I bought for more. Yeah, but your situation is also quite better right now. So again, there is no doubt you are paying more, but your position on the market is even better than the extra you are paying. So again, I'm saying this because I faced this situation a lot of times. I'm buying things for way more than I could buy 1 year ago or 2 years ago, but I feel more comfortable right now buying those things. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, the market was just in a completely different place, and has been, and if you still believe in it and the fundamentals still line up. I mean, there's things I am still currently buying where they're at the peak of their price, but I believe in it, and so I'll continue to do so until I think the fundamentals don't work out anymore. And I think we talked about this before as well, and it's a good lesson, is that when you see things go up a ton in value, you start to think, I know what it was worth before, so it's not worth that much now. But markets change all the time, and so when the prices shift like that, as long you talk about this a lot, there's a difference between value and price. and not always do they meet
Yeah.
at the point of value being exactly the same as price. A lot of the times the scales can get confusing, but as long as the fundamentals are right on the value side, even if the price was here and now it's here, it still is a good value for you to get in that. And so a more complicated thing to talk about, but
no, all of those topics are very complex. I mean, we try our best to explain, but in the end, this is a complex topic. Again, that's why I keep saying, do your own research. I change my mind all the time. That's the real. Look, if you are new into collecting, and there is a lot of people new into collecting, I can guarantee you just one thing. The way you see your collection right now will be very different 1 year from now. The only constant is changing, if you think about, because everything changes, but the change is a constant thing. You know what I'm trying to say? So, and yeah, even if I believe we are facing a downtrend, again, I believe there is a lot of people being negative right now in the market, and that makes an opportunity to buy, because right now is the time to be optimistic. Is the time to buy certain things that you end up reaching in the past to have a correction. Guess what? The correction is with us right now. But people say that, but they never buy when things are down, because again, you can see when things are going down, it's so difficult to see the positive side. And by the way, I'm not any type of guru. I also struggle with that. Sometimes I question, maybe the market is actually then. Of course, this is an extreme example, but everyone struggles with these questions. Maybe this is not the best market. Maybe soccer was a little bit overrated. There is always this type of thoughts in your mind, but you need to stay focused. And there is no way around that. If you believe in the fundamentals, if everyone is saying, you know what, F1 is the market you should go, soccer is then, that's a good indication that maybe soccer could be the play right now. So
yeah, it's the natural trends of the market. When things are going up, it's very hard to see the downside of the cliff that is obviously going to be there. Like with base stuff, for example, if you were looking at the fundamentals, it was kind of obvious that we weren't going to do this forever. But when things are going up like that, it's really hard to see this part of it. And now we're on this part with a lot of different stuff, whether that be base or other things. It's hard to see when it's going to go like this again.
Yes. I mean, humans are, I mean, people say markets are irrational. It's because of that. It's because people love to buy when things are hot, when things are doing very, very well, when people say, no, guess what? That's amazing. But when things are going down, people are that's what the awful market. So yeah, is a complex
you're almost
topic.
Always better doing the inverse of what everyone else is doing. If everybody is looking to buy something, you should probably be selling it.
And look, there is times that I agree with the market, that I think, yeah, that's quite overrated. I actually don't even believe those things. Look, for example, I know there is a lot of negativity to base cards in basketball, and I agree. I don't think those cards, I mean, can I see them recovering? Of course, that can be, but I don't think those cards are actually something that you should put your money into the future. I agree with the market on that sense. But for example, and I guess this is the obvious example in the market, the Messi market is facing a correction, but I still believe on the Messi market. So can I be on the down for one more year? Of course. I mean, that's I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know the future, but I still believe in that. And if I'm wrong, basically.
Just natural trends in the market. We will go up again, and we will definitely go down again. It's just a matter of when it comes, and there's no way to really know.
And this was not in my mind, but I would say one thing that I've been saying in a couple of actually Patreon audios, that right now I see a lot of people trying to tell you what you should collect. Don't let that people define your collection, define your goals, because look, no one knows what will be the next big thing, if soccer will perform well or not. We don't know that. We have hopes, we try to apply some type of fundamentals logic, but in the end, collect what you love. If you love to collect Star Wars, if you love to collect Marvel, I think those markets are also great, as long as you do your own research, because we see a lot of negative when a new market appears. And by the way, I was that guy not that long time ago. I remember me saying that F1 was a pump and dump market. And guess what? The F1 market is still with us. Do I still feel there is some type of hype on that set, like you said, with the Netflix show? Yes, but the reality is, look, it is what it is. Maybe, look, I probably end up missing a great opportunity on vintage. Seems like vintage is doing very well, and on that I feel more confident. So don't tell other people, me, James, tell what you should collect. In the end, do your own research, and you will do again. That's the best bet in my perspective. So yeah.
Yeah, take the time to grind, and then once you grind it and you look at fundamentals and it makes a lot of sense, then get things that you believe in and you think would be a good addition to your collection and work from there.
Okay, let's finish this because I don't even know how many hours end up going. Maybe 2 hours. I'm not sure. Maybe less, but I don't know. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed. For people that don't know, I know James. I would say very well at this point. I think he's a very smart guy. I'm being real. I think he's. I actually don't think you end up demonstrating what you know about the market on this. So maybe you need to come back another time. And yeah, leave a like, subscribe. I will leave links for James' social media, and see you guys in the next one. Bye. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this last video, but now I have a couple of things to share with you. If you want to support my work, joining Patreon tends to be the best way to do it, and apart from that I give you exclusive content. I put a new Q&A every week, and I also make a podcast, extra audio, the name is up to you, on Saturday. So exclusive content, you can interact with me very well there, and apart from that I've been answering more than, in the last couple of months, and I'm answering more than 300 questions, which is quite crazy to think about. Again, if you like my content on YouTube, very likely scenario you end up loving my content on Patreon. To join the Patreon, you need to pay around $10, but that for some people can be a lot of money, and if that's the case, no problem at all. One thing that is totally free is my Discord server. We talk about the soccer card market, but specific about pre-modern there, and it's an amazing place to learn about the market. We are more than 400 members, and joining, like I said, if the Patreon $10 is a lot to you, the Discord is totally free, so there is no reason to not join my Discord. Check both links on the description, and see you guys the next time. Bye.